I purchased a tiny home in 2021, and with the thought that I could possibly move into that tiny home and rent my house out, or either rent that home out. So I started renovating the home and trying to get it ready for either myself or for a rental property. Of course, in October, my father he contracted COVID, and so all renovations and everything halted. Um, I picked up on those in about March of 2022 and started back on the renovations. And eventually, I realized that I had spent a lot of money keeping the utilities on, paying the lot rent, because the tiny home is half mobile home, half stick built home. I spent a lot of money on those renovations, and I was trying to see how I could get some of that money back, because those trips to South Carolina also were costly, as well as if I'm not working, I'm not making money. So 2020, the end of 2021 and 2022 financially was kind of difficult. So during this time, in December of 2022, I decided that maybe I should try to put it up for Airbnb and make some money until I was ready to either move in it or get a full-time rental, or a renter, I should say. And so I called the office of the mobile home park and asked them if Airbnb was allowed. I was told that it was, and I already knew from purchasing the home that rentals were available. So I put it up on Airbnb that Monday, and by that Friday, the rest of the month was booked. I was amazed at how quickly it was booked, and most everyone who was booking were booking for full months. So I thought finally was at a great place. I was getting my money back from having the utilities and paying the lot rent every month. And then in February, when I was released from the emergency room, I went to grab something to eat, and I got a call from the new property manager who told me that I was doing single day Airbnb rentals and it was not permitted. I originally never rented it singly, or single nights, I should say, but the neighbors in the area kept asking if I would rent to their family and friends. And for the longest, I ignored it. But during the time that I ignored it, I noticed that other complaints about my property kept happening. So I felt like maybe I should just give in and rent to them for 1, 2, or 3 nights. Honestly, on the short rentals, you don't really make any money. Your money is made on the longer ones. So I wasn't a fan of it. So when he advised me that the short rentals weren't allowed, I told him I had never seen anything about it, if he could send the rules over to me, and I never got that. And so I decided I was never going to rent for those short rentals again. But how Airbnb rules are, if someone is already booked, you have to honor that booking. And if you don't, you have to pay $75 for each of the bookings that you cancel. Well, the whole idea was to try to make me whole financially, so I did not want to pay $75 to each of I believe it was 3 people. So I thought I was going to finish out those rentals and then get into renting for monthly rentals again. By the second short rental, I got a call from the property manager, and all he said was, "You lied, you're a liar." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He wouldn't have a conversation with me and hung up. And I was served in the mail with papers saying that I was in violation and I was going to be evicted from the park. So when I called him for explanation, I never got any from him. He told me to contact his lawyer. I contacted the lawyer and still really did not get an explanation of what was going on. I kept fighting, trying to see what's happening. Hey, I'm not even renting it for the short term. I've already finished out the people who were scheduled, but at that point, nothing sufficed the new property manager. My eviction was supposed to be, I was supposed to be out of the tiny home by May 1st. And so I decided I would try to move it to my own land. It was very difficult finding land that could accommodate the tiny home that was in my price range. And when I did find something, I discovered that moving it was going to cost well over $20,000. And so that no longer seemed to be an option. So I decided to put it up for sale. I contacted a realtor, he listed it, and he spoke to the property manager and told them, well, she's having surgery on the 1st, and we have it listed. Could we have an extension? And the property managers agreed. That extension only lasted about a month before I received more papers stating that I was being evicted from the park, and I had to either remove the mobile home out of the park or forfeit the mobile home and all the property in it to the park. And of course, I did not want to do that. So we continued trying to find someone to sell it to up until it was time to go to court. When I went to court, the judge told me that because my lease for renting the property, the lot that I was renting, because that lease had expired in August of the year before, they could say that they don't want me there anymore. Of course, I was the youngest person in this community and the only African American person in the community. So the idea was that they just didn't want me there anymore. Even though I wasn't physically living there, they didn't want me to own the home in the park any longer. And so the judge signed off on it and said that I had to sell it or move it, and that I would be notified once the judge's order was completed. I never received any notification. I started trying to sell it myself and find someone who could purchase it. And then in August, on my parents' anniversary, August 15th, my phone started buzzing crazy. My camera was going crazy at the tiny house. I opened the app to look at the cameras, and I saw the sheriff's department breaking into the tiny home and seizing ownership. I had not received any notification from anyone, and I just totally lost it because they were taking ownership of the home as well as all of the belongings inside of the home. I contacted my psychiatrist. I was in a frenzy. She was like, I'm going to send you over some medication, and it was something that was extremely strong, and I refused. I asked for something that wasn't going to be as strong, and I relied on the medical marijuana. But when I tell you during this time, I fell into a deep depression. And I know some people will say, hey, it's just property, it doesn't mean anything. But if you went to sleep and you woke up and someone snatched $100,000 from you, especially in a time where financially you need that, you might lose it too. I contacted people trying to figure out how I could get the property back. There was little help from individuals. I called the Better Business Bureau. I called the Attorney General. I filed complaints with every office I could possibly think of because I didn't owe the park any money. I never was behind in my lot rent. I didn't owe anyone anything. So I was just being evicted because they did not want me to own a home in the community any longer. And because I could not afford the $20,000 to move it to someplace else, they were going to take it from me. All of my complaints ended up being very helpful because they decided to give me more notice this time to either sell or get my belongings out. And when they gave me the notice again, I was able to find someone that I could sell the tiny home to, and so I did that. And so that is how I got the tiny home back, and I was able to sell. But ultimately, it definitely wasn't fair, and I learned the new rules in Florida regarding mobile homes. And so maybe my next rental property in Florida probably won't be a mobile home.